So here's the final placement and installation of my AEM analog oil pressure gauge in a Nissan 370Z. I decided to place it here on the top right of the instrument cluster just so that it would be a nice straight line, single glance to look at all my gauges rather than try to put it on the left side here or hide it somewhere around the steering column, which would make it less visible, being that it's such an important gauge, and hence the reason for even going through the trouble of installing it. So here's what it looks like. The AEM gauge is pretty nice in that it will have variable LED colors, so you can match the interior of your car. So there's an orangey red. That's pretty close enough. Again, you can see that it's a nice straight line glance across all the gauges to see what's going on here. This is a 100% cold start at the moment, so the oil pressures are certainly on the high side, but this is obviously normal when a car is getting started and the oil is cold. And as things warm up to operating temperature, the idle oil pressure drops to about 20 psi. In the Nissan service manual, the recommended idling 750 RPM oil pressure is greater than 14 psi, so 20 is fine. Driving around, I've seen it go as high as 60 or 70, but again, that's normal range for these cars, and pretty much most cars. And finally, the other kind of checkpoint that Nissan gives you is at 2,000 RPM, the oil pressure should be greater than 40 psi, and I have that happen as well. So that's the AEM oil pressure gauge. Overall, I'm happy with how it went in. It wasn't a terribly difficult install, but it does require pulling some panels and running wires. And I would like it to be more concealed. You can see it's obviously sticking up here on the dash. I attached it with some Velcro so that nothing's permanent now if I choose to move it in the next week or two. But if I do decide to keep it here, I'll probably just order another one of these finishing pieces, which is about $40 online, and I can actually just put a couple screws in and have it mounted, hard mounted to the finisher instead of just Velcroed on there, which is a little tacky. But that's the gauge. It certainly does its job, and I get a little more peace of mind knowing that I have adequate oil pressure, and I'll certainly know right away if there's a problem with an oil line for the oil cooler or something like that. So anybody that tracks their car or has installed some aftermarket parts in the oil system or engine, I think this is certainly a worthwhile thing to do, and highly recommend doing it. Thanks.